This was an act of terrorism. It was premeditated and an evil act. We do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack is involved in this attack except for Shamsud-Din Jabbar, the subject you've already been briefed on.
It was horrific. It was horrible. We all saw the carnage from the streets of New Orleans on Bourbon Street. Really, let's take a look at the suspect, because the suspect is not the I mean, he did it. He's dead now. There's not going to be a trial. There's no one to prosecute here. They say he did it by himself, but the investigation continues. And joining us to take a look at what's been happening, he's been on the case since the beginning. Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas is with us. Cody, brand new video today?
Yeah, it's brand new video, Vinny, and this video is kind of a sign of the times that we're living in, because the suspect Shamsud-Din Jabbar was wearing these glasses called Meta glasses, owned by the big company Meta that runs Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram. These glasses are capable of recording and live streaming anything that you're seeing. You know, first person point of view, and you can see there on your screen, he has them on in the mirror right there. But let's take a look at the video. He was down in New Orleans on October 30th. You can see it right there.
And he's recording all this with those glasses.
He's on a bicycle right now, riding through the French Quarter, seemingly staking out, you know, where he's gonna carry out his attack. And you see he's going around, he's looking at people, he's just slowly strolling through, and it's kind of eerie, Vinny, that, you know, just about 2 months later, 60 days later, that something so horrendous, so horrific would be happening right here on a street that's so celebrated across this country. So he's wearing these tech glasses, looking all around, and you see the intersections, and we know he placed one of those homemade bombs on the intersection of Bourbon and Orleans Street. So seems to be going through his motions, and he was also there on November 10th, but police are still working through his movements that day. They don't know exactly what he was doing in New Orleans there on November 10th, about a month and a half beforehand, but he was there twice before the attack happened on New Year's Day, the early morning hours of New Year's Day.
And no one would suspect anything. Like, even if you're in New Orleans with a camera or with your phone, people aren't necessarily going to suspect that you're doing anything, but this is like really like under the radar, and he can kind of see the lay of the land. What's interesting, though, he didn't do it on a nighttime when it's crowded to see the way it's set up. I mean, this is a much different situation. There's also new surveillance video of the terrorist?
Yes, of course, we've seen a couple still images of him from a couple hours. You know, the attack happened at 3:15 in the morning on New Year's Day. So this was around 10, 11 p.m. New Year's Eve night. And you see him right there. He's on his phone with that cooler that's right there behind him. Now, people are walking by. They don't know that cooler is an IED, an improvised explosion device, or pretty much a homemade bomb. And at least 2 homemade bombs were found in the area that night. And in his car, well, not his car, a rented car that he got. A detonation device was found in the car after it crashed. Of course, we know he was shot and killed on the scene, but they found that remote detonation device inside that truck, and that's probably the thinnest silver line of this whole thing, is that those 2 IEDs did not go off and cause even more carnage.
Right, but the fact that he was able to roll it in and leave it there, right? Roll it in. Like, this is what we saw with the Boston bomber, right?
Exactly.
You know, it was a backpack instead of a rolling thing, but no one saw it and said anything. There was no one from law enforcement anywhere near. That's troubling as well, but thank goodness, like you said.
Yeah.
And then, what do we know about this suspect versus the other explosion that happened, and people were trying to tie the two together?
Right.
The one in Las Vegas by the Trump Tower Hotel.
Yeah, so of course when it first happened, there was similarities. Both attacks involved cars that were rented on the app Turo. Both attacks involved military veterans. Both attacks happened on New Year's Day, but the FBI has come out and said there's no definitive link between the 2 men. Of course, they were both military, both served tours in Afghanistan, both spent time at Fort Bragg, but there was no overlap in their services or anything of that nature. But what's interesting, Vinny, the guy out in Las Vegas, he was a very decorated Army Special Forces Green Beret. He was active duty. He was home on leave when the attack happened out there, another horrific attack. I just want to read you off some of his commendations that he got while in the service. 5 Bronze Stars, including 1 with Valor for courage under fire. Now, I don't know if you know anything about medals and things in the military, Vinny, but those are all combat. So they're not just, you know, you're being a good soldier. This is time and grade, and you've been here 10 years. Here's a Bronze Star. No, that comes with, you've seen some action. When you add that with Valor device onto it, that means you've done something probably heroic beyond belief to you guys like you and me. So he got 5 Bronze Stars, 1 with Valor, another Combat Infantry Badge, and an Army Commendation Medal with Valor as well. And again, this is the guy, 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger out in Las Vegas. And if you look at his repertoire, you know he's highly trained, ironically, in counterterrorism. But so that begs...
It seems like they're on different sides of, of the way they would see the world,
exactly.
these two guys.
They have the makings of American heroes, but it just begs the question or the larger conversation as to what drives these men to do this, what happened to lead to
Well, in one case, one man
things.
takes all those lives, right? As much carnage as possible. The other one takes his own life, and no one else, a couple of people got slightly injured, but no one else is killed.
No one died.
And there's no one else really there.
Right.
Because it was done in the Cybertruck, which doesn't explode. Strange case. All right, Cody Thomas, thank you so much for those details. Think Tank still with us. Al wants Jennifer Brandt, and now finally joining us. Yes, there he is. From somewhere around the globe, Darnell Crossin is with us. All right, we got the full crew. So I'm looking at all this, and I'll start with you, Darnell. I mean, let's start in New Orleans. Was there anything that you think they'll learn in this investigation that will help them prevent something in the future, or are we just going to learn how exactly this guy did it and why exactly this guy did it, which I think is pretty obvious at this point?
Yes, that's a difficult thing. You know, you don't want to cause people not to be able to celebrate, not to go to the Rockefeller Center tree lighting, not to be able to go to New Orleans and celebrate these holidays. But they're going to have to put up more barriers. It seems like in New York they have the cameras all around Times Square, kind of seeing every movement. But now, you know, it seems like we don't want the law enforcement to listen into our conversations and to be too intrusive, but they're gonna have a real heavy responsibility and burden trying to balance not being overly intrusive, but also keeping their eyes and ears open so we can avoid these things.
Yeah, Jennifer, what do you think is going to result from the investigation into all of this? I mean, everything points to there's no one else involved. It's just him. I mean, if it leads to someone else, that's obviously a big deal. But if we're just left with he did it by himself and we're investigating what he did, what's the result of all that?
Well, I mean, like many of these situations, he seemed like he was definitely troubled, you know, and I think he was just somebody that just found, you know, a calling and decided that he's going to cause as much, you know, terror as possible. We've seen it before. So, you know, I think it's just a matter of other people, relatives, other people that he's in contact with, or other people in general, just keeping their eyes open, that if a family member or someone that they know starts acting strange, starts doing strange things, getting firearms, building bombs, I mean, alert the police before another tragedy like this happens. We see it in school shootings. We see it over and over again. I think the people that are closest to him will see these problems happening first. And those are the people that really need to contact law enforcement before another tragedy occurs.
Al, to me, the most troubling part of all of this is, one, it seemed that in New Orleans, the police chief had no idea about these extra barriers that they had for the sidewalks that would help prevent this. And then the fact that someone can roll a cooler out with a bomb in it and just leave it there and no one noticed.
Well, you know, that's interesting about the coolers, because at that time, you know, and if you've ever been to Bourbon Street and whatever, I mean, you know, it's very free-flowing alcohol and things along those lines, and you do see coolers out there, generally attended. But
right.
I mean,
that's the point, isn't it? That's the point. If you see a package, you see a strange package, you see a backpack, and now I guess if you see a cooler.
I think a backpack would have provoked a little more interest than the cooler. That's what I think. I think he did a very good job in his reconnoiter, and that's what you saw when he had the meta glasses on. He's going down. He's looking at things along those lines. And by doing the cooler, it certainly threw people off, because it wasn't that, you know, that's not strange. I believe a package or a backpack would have been a stronger signal. And I just want to say one thing with regards to the Las Vegas situation.
All right, we only have this much time.
Okay, the Bronze Star is not necessarily only for combat. It's also for merit and achievement. He had one for valor, which was for combat, but the other ones were for merit and achievement. Okay, so there wasn't battle earned.
Big thanks, Al Wunsch, Jennifer Brandt, and I'm glad we finally tracked down Darnell. When we come back, folks, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight.
How we doing, guys? We're good? Okay.
You're on very shaky ground.
That is unreal.
People wanted answers, and people started locking their doors.
I did not do it to hurt anybody.
You know what it means. You know what you did, right?
Please hear me out. Please. This was a real-life soap opera. And I said, OJ, everybody thinks you're guilty.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. You are the spawn of Satan. This, folks, is something that you absolutely need to see tonight. One of the most powerful victim impact statements I've ever seen in the history of the trials we've covered at Court TV. It involves the Pike County Massacre. 8 members of the Roden family were murdered by members of the Wagner family. 2 of those defendants, of those killers, were being sentenced. Let's take a listen to Andrea Shoemaker, Hannah's mom.
Let alone your granddaughter's mother. How greedy of a grandmother are you? How greedy. You killed your granddaughter's mother. You're evil. You're evil. You are the spawn of Satan. And the Satan is Billy Wagner. You are the evilest mother to help plan, carry out, and take the lives of 3 other mothers. My daughter was only 20, and you want 30 years of your life behind bars? 30? She was 20! 20! She never even got to buy alcohol. She got 6 months of her life with her kid. 6 months. And Hannah Mae Roden, the love of your life, Jake Wagner, the love of your life, your daughter's mother, she got 4 days. Kylie Roden got 4 days. You, I want you to suffer. This is what I want. And I've told all BCI, I want your mother to live. And you boys to die as well as your dad. I want you to die so your mom feels the heartache of what it's like to bury a child. It's a heartache that never goes away. I hate you. You ruined my life. You ruined innocent children's lives. I hope you die. I pray every day you die. I pray your grandchildren and your children never want anything to do with you. And I hope they never do. I hope your daughter hates you with a passion and as much heart as I hate you, Jake Wagner. You shook my hand and acted as if you was mine. After you shot my daughter 5 times. 5 times? Man, Wagner, son laid between them.
Thoughts are with the family. Wow. Before we go, we have a missing child who needs your help. Mason Goldman Duff, 17 years old, missing out of Buckeye, Arizona. You can call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or the Buckeye Police Department in Arizona. The number's on the screen.